Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is November 15th. It's Wednesday's Hope Day, and that means that we are here to talk about all the fun daily AI show news, or all the news in AI over the last week. I'll get it right. It's Wednesday, and it's only a week out from the American holiday, Thanksgiving, because we have an international cast here. So I think my head is starting to drift towards days off and turkey and stuffing, and at some point maybe I'll teach you guys how to make a perfect turkey day burrito, which I invented back when I was a firefighter. We don't have time to talk about that today, but
firefighter story.
Keep that in your minds that I invented it. That's all you need to know.
Darn it! I was looking for a firefighter story. All right, I would love a turkey burrito. That sounds freaking amazing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get the patent on it back in the day, but it's a great story. Maybe that'll be a great story if we do a show on Thanksgiving, which we'll definitely be talking about off air after this and figuring out what our schedule is. But that doesn't matter for today, and that's why we got to get on it. Today we got Jimmy, Beth, Robert, Aaron, Andy, and I'm Brian. Only one we're missing right now is Carl, but he might be here. Sometimes he pops in around this time. So we might have the whole crew today. And the goal of today, as it has been for the last several Wednesdays, is to talk about AI in the news. Like I was saying in the intro, it's hump day. It's the middle of the week. So it's a perfect time to reflect back over the last 7 days of all the craziness that has happened in AI. And so I think we have a few kind of cool stories. It sounded like before we went on air, you guys had a few, and some of them overlap with me, but I would love it if whoever wants to jump in with their first story, and let's just kind of go. Let's make this a good 30 minutes. I'm ready. All
right, I'm ready to jump in. It's a smaller story, but I think it will it'll have a long tail to it. Civit AI. It is a new platform for artists to post their AI art. Right? It's a big push to get the creations using these new tools out there, and people can appreciate it, get inspired, and make more art, which I think will lead to more adoption and just spread using AI in all art fields. So that's what I'm really hoping. I have some big hopes on it. We'll see what happens. It could be the new 1995 Deviant Art launch, if you're familiar. But I hope and see great things for it.
I love it.
And okay, I'm going to go next.
Morning, man. How are you?
Morning.
Thanks for joining us.
So I've got two for you. The first one's a short one, and it was announced that a Chinese chemist had come up with an AI robot chemist that can make oxygen on Mars, which I thought was really interesting. So what it can do is, the idea is you send it off to Mars and it uses magical chemistry to release oxygen from water that's on Mars that you might not be able to get to. But the really interesting thing about that, because I don't think we're going to Mars in the next year or two, but the thing I found really intriguing was this little, I'll just read this sentence to you. So what they did is, the AI-powered system uses acids and alkalis to dissolve and separate the materials, and it analyzes the resulting compounds, and these form the basis of a search of more than 3.7 million formulas for a chemical that can break down the water known to exist as ice. Now, that process would normally take a human team 2,000 years. And I don't know how long it's doing, but it doesn't sound like it's 2,000 years. So I thought that was pretty damn cool. I'm a bit of a space nerd, so very interesting. The other one I noticed was that yesterday, I think it was, YouTube has just released a bit of an update talking about how AI content on their platform at some stage is probably going to start being tagged as being AI. And if it's particularly egregious stuff, they'll either just get rid of it or they'll put some big glaring warnings all over it. And so, yeah, I kind of suspect that sort of stuff would happen. I mean, for me and what I do, I don't see it being a major issue. Half the time I mention that it's an AI video when I'm in it. But nonetheless, if your plan is to use AI content on YouTube, be aware that at some stage you're probably going to end up having it flagged as being AI. Not necessarily a bad thing, but for some people they might not like it. So that's me.
Yeah, I just want to add on that one. I read too on that, Aaron, that I thought that was a really interesting story too. It was definitely one of the ones I sort of flagged for this week. And it seemed to me that YouTube will ask the creators if they used AI as part of the process. I don't know how in depth that goes, like any part of the process or the, you know, where that line is, but I'm sure they'll find out.
Yeah.
And then also I saw that that same sort of announcement also touched on the music industry in terms of, you know, we have, if you've ever gone onto TikTok and gone to the account There I Ruined It, which I highly recommend. It's awesome. And basically it's like parodied songs in the voice of certain people, but it's like Johnny Cash singing, you know, Taylor Swift song, whatever it is, but there's some really, really good ones on it. It's called There I Ruined It, for, you know, the tongue in cheek. So you can go check that out or whatever. So like accounts like that, where it is, at least to me, maybe I don't have the most trained ear, but it sounds like Johnny Cash to me. Obviously it could be passed off as something, you know, obviously it's a recent song beyond his death, but still. So I think it will also, though, like they were talking about rappers, obviously in music, which is where we see a lot of this, but it's also got to apply to people who start putting out full on speeches from Steve Jobs that are not him. You know, I mean, he's a huge subject matter expert in the time where he was alive and what he did. And a lot of people look to him as a North Star in some cases of how they might want to look at product design and things like this. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm just saying that like he's obviously a popular figure in that way. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how YouTube handles that as well. I'd imagine the same way, which is you have to basically say this was an AI generated version and so on and so forth. Right. It can't be passed off as unique and original, I guess. So interesting stuff.
Yeah. I found the focus was
speaking of the There I Ruined It thing. That kind of reminds me of a couple of things I've seen. Is there's one, I think it's a TikTok where they do a lot of Star Trek stuff, and they've got Captain Kirk. I'm not Captain Kirk, Captain Picard doing a voiceover, but it's all sweary and pretty crass and hilarious. Yeah. But it sounds exactly like his voice, so that's bound to be an issue. And then there's another one. What's the other one? I can't remember the other one, but there's a similar one that does something the same. So yeah, I think you're right. Some of those are probably going to either get flagged or possibly even kicked off. So yeah, interesting days.
And let's be honest, I want all of my AI to sound like Patrick Stewart and Jean. I want everything to start with Stardate, something, and then tell me what it is. And as I've said with Pi, when I made Pi into like, I think it was a female British voice, I instantly trusted it more. There is something about that. You can talk to me in an American accent all day long, and I'll be like, yeah. Switch that to a British or an Australian accent. I'm like, what would you say? What was that? You know, so I think, you know, I don't know if Patrick Stewart has you know, sold the rights to his AI version voice, but God knows if anybody should, that dude should. There's probably a lot of money to be made there for him. So anyway, that's awesome. I love it.
All right. So the story that I want to talk about is a paper that DeepMind dropped that categorized levels of AGI. And so let me pull this up. And what's interesting, AGI is artificial general intelligence, right? So like a broad smattering. So you're better than a human at doing. You're better than a human at doing a variety of things.
Are you going to share your screen, Beth? Or are you just going to?
I am going to share the screen.
Okay, cool.
But you know, as a thingy, there we go. Okay. So this is the table, and what they've done, which is interesting, is they've given it levels, which are similar to the car driving autonomous car, autonomous driving cars on the left column. And then they've said a narrow, so clearly scoped tasks or set of tasks, like Grammarly, right? Like it's really great at grammar. It's better than 99% of humans at grammar.
That's because most
Suck it, Prima.
Actually, it's saying it's better than 90% of humans. And then when you get down, the last row is superhuman intelligence, artificial super intelligence, which is ASI. And we've heard an uptick of AGI conversations, right? Like people are just sort of dropping that in as though that's automatically going to happen. But Altman, in his interview with the Financial Times, where he dropped that they're working on GPT-5, and they talked like there was a bunch of news that came out of that. He started to talk about super intelligence in that conversation. And I think that is significant.
Well, it's interesting that graph is I don't know if everybody agrees. Not in this call, but like the scientists behind this agree with those levels, because to me, the ultimate AGI is autonomous, and they didn't say anything about autonomous. They said 100% of humans it's smarter than or outperform. So is that assuming there's a automation level in there or autonomous level in there?
No. In this, there is not an assumption, and autonomous like agents that can do this adds another dimension to it, but it's not necessarily associated within this context. What I found interesting in that is that in a narrow scope, we've already reached superhuman intelligence, right? There's already narrow things that like the AlphaFold and AlphaGo, maybe like there are specific verticals or capabilities that have already superseded.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, especially like going back to what Aaron said about like, using algorithms and AI to come up with 4 trillion, different variations of, chemical compounds or whatever. I mean, when you think about those kind of things, I think that's a good call out, Beth. It's like, we're talking about, general intelligence. And of course that's broad. But there are plenty of places, I didn't really think of it this way, that you're right, where it already has been achieved. And I'm glad you showed that graphic too, because I've heard Rachel Woods, who we all know is the sort of founder of the AI Exchange, is somebody we all follow and work with. And she's used that on her TikToks before, where she's used the car automation sort of levels to talk about where things are heading. And I think it is a really nice way to sort of compare and contrast to get a feel for where we are, because I think people have been so familiar with the idea of a truly autonomous driving car and the things that Waymo have done and had to pull back in certain cities and things like this. So anyway, that's like super interesting. We also sort of a follow-up comment to this. I'm sorry, I don't know who the link to. Probably came in on one of the other one of our other comment section on LinkedIn, but he or she said OpenAI says they'll decide by committee, which I read about as well, when AGI is achieved in-house, and they're seeking more money from Microsoft, investment to hire talent away from Google. Yeah, we were sort of talking about that at the top here, that OpenAI, as Sam Altman has been pretty open about the idea that things like GPT-5 and moving towards intelligence. I mean, he even had a quote that said something, I'm paraphrasing, about we're in the business of intelligence. All this other stuff is secondary. We're in the business of intelligence. And he has made it very, very well known. It's very expensive. I think we've all heard that. Extremely expensive to build this new GPT-5 or what that might be, where it moves towards super intelligence. And they need the funding to do that, and Microsoft has deep pockets, so they'll continue to go back to
Microsoft,
that.
give me all your money.
Yeah,
it's also from the part of why this paper and the levels drop was helpful is because there's unlikely to be an agreement across the board. We've reached like on August 7th 2025, we all agree that we have achieved AGI. It's likely to be a slow rollout and a slow realization, and this gives a framework to have conversations across models.
Yeah, so
in respect of their intention to achieve AGI, OpenMind and Sam Altman said that they do not intend to go public, which will allow them as a private company to make some tough decisions about how to.
Well, that was interesting.
In respect to AGI. I want to
Yeah,
know.
but
I like how he
Andy,
did it.
you
Be
said
careful,
earlier.
careful when people like that spin that kind of stuff, because there's other things that you need to be concerned about when a company decides not to go public, because then we won't get into that, but that's
Yeah.
not exactly good news, or he just spun it that way. I do want to do a news article and on the opposite side of what Beth just did. I think it's kind of interesting, and I had a hard time finding the article. I'm going to post it so people can look at it, or maybe somebody can post this for me. So I listen to lots of podcasts, and I heard it on a podcast. So I was trying to find the article while we started, but I couldn't find the exact article. But they did a paper on hallucinations and each language models and the percentage of hallucinating. And I was expected GPT-4 did the best, 3.5. Well, GPT-4, then 3.5, and then actually I think it was Anthropic, then Cohere. And then, of course, worst of worst is Palm. It's like sucks bad. Of course, we don't have Carl here to validate how much it sucks because he levitated on it. But I thought that was a really good parallel to the AGI thing. Is like, well, it's still screwing up. Like it's still hallucinating, and it's still not really actually doing what people think it can do. And they actually did some unique things. They didn't just, in general, they had a test on whether it hallucinated, but then they specifically did it on a series of questions. I think it was wasn't about insurance or something else. I'm rambling, but my point is that on some things it was 20-30% hallucination.
Wow.
But then in general, I would think it was like 4%, which is the best, I think, from GPT-4. So if you're looking for a model that's less hallucinogenic, that's not the right word.
Was high on drugs.
Yeah, they're hallucinogenic. I'm not sure who else is going to talk about a few other things. I have a few other news things that are interesting. Number one is Amazon is doubling down and doing Olympus, a new model LLM that they want to design. They had Titan, and they were working on it back last year, and then when GPT-4 came out, they're like, let's throw that away. That sucks. They literally said they scrapped it because of how bad it was in comparison to GPT-3. So they're like, shoot, we need to go back to the drawing board. And so they're doing that with Olympus, and they hope, there was what they say, to roll it out for Alexa. Alexa. Yeah, I don't have one.
Yeah.
But that's really big deal. If they can actually do it good enough, GPT-4 good enough, they're getting ahead of the device-driven language model.
Yes.
Except for human AI, which we've already talked about. Human AI.
The
Humane.
AI pen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last week
Yeah,
we did,
people know it as AI pen. Yeah.
Yeah, so the AI pen, humane.ai. I'm probably going to get one, to be frank. I was looking at some things. I love the translation thing. So the guy did a demo where he's talking to a guy in Spanish, and it translates it for him and it repeats back. That was brilliant. And the same intonation as the guy who said it.
Yeah.
So those are
I would
my
love for you to get it so we can all see it together. It'd be awesome to share on here.
yeah, that'd be fun.
Shine the thing on your hand that it does the.
Yeah,
the-
no, we'll be talking and you'll see Robert go, wait. Looking at his hand.
So I have one more I forgot to say, but if anybody looked at Runway or has been following Runway, they have a new functionality that they call Motion Brush. So you take a still image of, let's say, a cigarette with smoke, and you mask out the smoke just with a paintbrush, and then it will actually generate a video based on the image. I thought that was great. You could do the same thing for a boat that's taking a picture in the ocean. It'll make it look like it's sailing.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. I'm trying to think of use cases, but think of animated GIFs. That could be a way to kind of create a version of that. Anyway, those are my three news.
I have some high expectations. I think it's a great route to go down for certain compositing aspects. So if you can just animate that and take that element, layer it with another image that's, like the sky clouds are rolling, you've got a vehicle moving, you've got smoke coming out of a chimney, and all of those elements, it might help with just compositing an image or compositing a video faster. So shorten down that process. I really want to see more. I want to see long form, right? Every clip I've ever seen is like 3 seconds. It's like, can we see how it performs, with a 10 20, 30-second scene. Because then you can put multiple scenes together. If you can get a 2-minute or 3-minute scene and it looks flawless, you can start building films. Like
Runway ML's already got that
We're not
option.
there
You get 4 seconds for the video, and then you can add an extra, I think it's another 4 lots of 4 seconds, so up to about 20 seconds on that. So that's already available now. I was playing with, I don't know if you guys run across Play, oh God, what's it called? I don't know, I was playing with something that does a 3-second one yesterday, which was kind of interesting, but I just, Playday, Plaiday.
Yeah.
Not as good as Runway, but interesting nonetheless.
Has anybody played with Grok yet? AI, X.AI, Groks. I've heard some good things about that. It's kind of funny because what makes that unique is I was listening to the podcast with Elon and Lex Friedman, and they were playing around with it, and it's going to have real-time access unlike any other. Like, you got to think most people, I'm not really a Twitter X person and haven't been, but there's a lot of people around the world that use that as the first news. Like, it comes to Twitter first before anything else. And if you think about that, the model is going to be used in real time. So you can access things that Twitter is posting right away, like 10 minutes ago. That is unlike any other platform. So I don't know how good the model is as far as hallucinations and whatnot, but having access to that data, that's going to be pretty big. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or how good Twitter is in accuracy, right? Like getting immediate access to bad data is not I'm not sure that's helpful.
Right. Being able to identify that or filter that.
Well, that's a whole other thing.
One of our exchange members, Nikolai, he built a site that that gathers information from multiple sources, but Twitter is one of them. And his deep news site, they have, or their system accesses like they have a certain list of X accounts that they gather information and things like that. I'd love to see how those two compare, or those two approaches, and see what comes out of that in terms of accurate information versus inaccurate, or what the trending type of identification or analysis and those kinds of things.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about OpenAI's play here with their guided chatbot builder, which is called GPTs, and that's it's just so fresh and it's so stormy out there with everything that's happening with that. You've got to mention it in the context of news. But what I want to mention about it is that I'm starting to feel like there's not all that much to it. There's a lot of different ways you can articulate it, and it's certainly a consumer advancement to allow you to build your own reference GPT. But I'm a little more skeptical now than I was last week about just how useful this is going to be, because of the limitations that are built into it. Now those can be corrected, but I wanted to mention that in the news, the response from LangChain, which is is the largest open source community and platform for building AI applications. They've launched and are now announcing this week OpenGPT. We saw it a while, but they have an open source version that's very similar, but actually has a wider range of capabilities. So open source, love it. LangChain pursuing OpenGPT. So you're going to have the guided chatbot builder, which is an interesting feature. Like, it'll help you build the chatbot, using AI on OpenAI. You don't have that with OpenGPT, but it has a lot of other bells and whistles. Two other little bits. One is the sleeping giant Google. Don't count them out. They have a huge set of resources, and even despite OpenAI's big budget, a lot of people are committed internally in Google to the advancement of AI. DeepMind is their AI sort of research arm, and they just announced a thing called GraphCast. GraphCast is a weather forecasting tool that is beating the major EU and US weather forecasting systems. So you can imagine, just implied in the term GraphCast is that it's looking at all of the movements of this oceans of atmosphere out there, and it's using AI to accurately predict down to the local level what's going to happen in the future periods. That's really cool. Okay, finally, one last thing. On the hardware side, NVIDIA announced their new GPU, which is going to be 2 times the capacity of their current GPU. So the speed, and I'm not sure about the energy efficiency of it, but by increasing the capacity in a single GPU chip, I think it's going to be making progress in that respect. It can calculate at 4.8 terabytes per second.
Wow.
That's pretty.
Well, I mean, the fact that that's a byte instead of a bit, that's a huge bandwidth there.
Yeah,
and speaking to that, those speed increases, Andy, SLoRa just came out as well, and so that's an efficiency framework for tuning and fine tuning models. And they're seeing on certain models, they're seeing an increase in speed by 4x. So combine that with the new hardware that you just talked about, we're going to see faster and easier deployments of more and more LLMs. Which
I'm not sure this is the right message, but I'd like to ask that question of the group here. What do you think? Because for a while back, there was like this talk about creating your own LLMs is going to be a thing, and it kind of died away because it let the experts do it. Now, from what you just said, like, man, are we going to have each company have their own LLM? I mean, is that going to be a thing?
I think on a certain level it'll have to be, just because I think once you reach a significant size for a company, you're going to want to invest and develop your own in-house things. Yeah, I think there will be applications for the large, the large companies out there, and most people's touch point with AI will be some sort of version or accessing that. But like you've said in the past, I think that companies will want to develop their own specialized LLMs or their specialized tools.
Maybe the parallel we can make is like a CRM. A lot of companies build their own internal, and some people have off the shelf products, or some of them like Salesforce have off the shelf but yet tweaked. So maybe that's the LLM of the future is Coca-Cola, 100%, or Allstate. Yeah, they're gonna have their own LLMs. Obviously Bloomberg, but I think a lot of the small and medium-sized businesses are going to do off the shelf, or maybe off the shelf plus fine tune. So yeah, that's probably the pathway. Okay, so any other thoughts for the week? The news? Anybody?
Yeah, I got a few really short ones that I could bring up that I was waiting to see if anybody else brought up. And by the way, listen, and put on this comment, and I don't want to. This is fast-paced news. Like I said, it's AI, so things are coming out all the time. And Anna said, in a similarly revolutionary tool, I had built Mansplainer Detective GPT, present company exempt. It's actually a self-reflection tool for all genders, not just pure snark. And I'd like to take the opportunity here to explain what Ann is talking about here. I'm sorry, it was low-hanging fruit. I had to do it.
Heaven forbid a male have an opinion. I know, right?
The two stories I want to talk about today are two things really quick. One was you.com, which I still want to know how much somebody paid for you.com for that domain. It had to be millions. It's a 3-letter domain. I mean, come on, with a .com. Anyway, maybe they already owned it and they decided to build something.
YOU, right?
YOU.com.
Okay.
It looks to me, I have not played with it. It looks to me like a Perplexity and all that. And so it's a browser, if you will. And I know we kind of covered that last week. That's not what I want to talk about, though. It's not like that just launched. They sort of have a pro model that looks to be about $10 a month. But it was the story that they mentioned about coming out with these APIs that are going to cost $100 per month and going to allow your other models like Llama and Claude, which they say have already jumped on this, to be able to connect through the API to bring in up-to-date information. And you is claiming, you.com is claiming that it'll be better than what you would get out of like a Google snippet, which would just be a short form of what's on that website, that they're in fact going to have these longer forms of, you know, snapshots of the internet that are going to allow these other models, like we can get currently with ChatGPT, to pull in real-time data along with your search criteria. So I think that's really interesting. $100 per month. I'm not really sure at this moment who the end user is for that, but it's interesting nonetheless, because it has been a definite issue with using a tool like, you know, Anthropic, which I love. I would love to have Anthropic or Claude be able to have real-time data. That would be important to me. I think that's a huge, huge differentiator right now. And I wanted to push back bad against Andy with the usefulness of custom GPTs, because there's a huge usefulness for custom GPTs, but that's not in the news. So I won't get into that. But there is like, I found a lot of cool ways to use it. The other news story I wanted to talk on really cool that I just thought was cool, saw it come across the feed, was Bumble. Bumble is, I didn't realize they've been around 10 years now, but it's a dating app where women always make the first move on the dating app. I got married in 2006, so dating apps were like barely a thing. So I have never had to deal with dating apps or anything. I think kind of, thank God. Yeah, that's a different news story. But what I like about it is Whitney Wolfe Herd, who is the current CEO, but I guess currently about to step back and be replaced by Slack's CEO, Littleine Jones. I hope I'm not saying that wrong. But anyway, the point is talking about how AI will further help and enhance their app, Bumble. So I think it's really cool to see that, because they already were sort of at the forefront of doing a lot of stuff in terms of, you know, making sure there was safety. They were already doing image detection for lewd images. They were like, I always felt like Bumble was really at the forefront of making sure women were protected first on these dating apps and things like that. And I love what she was talking about in terms of continuing to advance and look at the next 10 years of AI and how that can further enhance. And I would imagine all dating apps are going to be pushing hard as well as using AI. But I just found it a really interesting article. Also interesting that she's stepping not away from the company, but stepping down aside from the CEO and bringing in Slack's CEO, which is really interesting as well. So those are the two big ones. You guys mentioned a few others, but I wanted to hit those really quick before we wrapped up.
Quick question for LinkedIn user. Yes, it does have real-time data. Perplexity.ai can pull web-based stuff. So yeah, definitely, it's like searching the web and using language models. So that's a quick answer.
And it appears you.com as well, Ken. You know, I haven't really dove into you.com. So interesting if anybody else has and they want to dive into that, and maybe something we have to bring up in a new one, because I think that was maybe kind of missed on the browser discussion. I wasn't here for that one. Any other, before we wrap up, any other quick news stories that anybody feels like we definitely wanted to hit, like 10, 20 seconds on it? Anything?
I have I guess more of a question. I've been playing with GPTs this week, and Carl's been helping me. And the one thing I found really interesting is it runs out of usage real quick, like you know, you get 25 or 50. So I'm really interested to see, are they going to start introducing options without having to maybe subscribe to a really expensive enterprise account where you can get more of that? Because for my use, it's no good running out, you know, after one run for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I hope so. I would, you
I
know,
think that'll be on
$40
the
a month if they
side,
doubled down
the
and made it
API side.
unlimited, I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, I haven't been able to verify this because whenever I go to OpenAI, I log into my account, but I have seen a couple places saying that GPT Plus subscriptions are paused.
Yes, I heard about that.
That's right.
For a little bit, which shows there's a ton of usage, and it does not surprise me that they're doubling down on like, nope.
Yesterday was terrible.
Your usage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. My usage is so that's
I was trying to build yesterday, and it was almost unusable, network errors, and then of course those were counting against my usage limits. And then at some point around 5 o'clock last night, is like, you're done till 7 p.m. I was like, that's a good sign for me to step away from this computer. Right. So at that time of day, I was actually really happy it came up, because it literally forced me to stop trying to fix the problem I was trying to fix and just walk away with it, which was it was sort of a great stopgap. All right. that's it for today, guys. Hopefully you learned a ton, a lot of news that maybe you want to dive into yourself. I know we covered a lot in this one, which is actually kind of cool. I like the sort of the rapid pace of it. So that's it for today. We got 2 more episodes this week. We will be back next week. I think we're going to talk as soon as we get off air as far as what our plan is. But I think you can continue to find us here every weekday going forward, and bringing up much more interesting AI topics. So that's it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, happy hump day.
Ciao.
Aloha.